In today's video, we are going to talk about Linux versus Windows gaming. Well, I'll talk about some of the points that are common in both of the operating systems, and then we'll see which one is the better one. First of all, I'll start with Linux. At the moment, I have Ubuntu open in front of you. So first of all, if we talk about the operating system price, well, Linux distributions are open source and they are free to use. There are no Linux distribution that you have to buy, and almost all of them are free to use. If we talk about the game availability, well, in some of the Linux distributions, we get Steam support by default. For example, here I have my Ubuntu and we have Steam support available by default. If I write here Steam and hit enter, here you can see here we have Steam available. It means we have support of Steam available in our Ubuntu. And not only in Ubuntu, in majority of Linux distribution we get support of Steam. And that shows that we have a lot of games available by default that we can run on Linux distributions. And not only that, we have a lot of other Linux distributions that are primarily made and designed for gaming. For example, we have Garuda Linux, we have Pop OS, we have Endeavour OS, we have Fedora Spin. So these are some of the Linux distributions that are considered only for gaming. If we talk about the interface, well, Linux distributions have some default interfaces. But the good news is, as you change from Linux distribution to Linux distributions, you get new interface. For example, if you are using Ubuntu, you will get this kind of desktop environment or interface. But if you go to your Zorin OS, or let's say if you go to your Fedora or Manjaro, you will get different interface. And that shows that we have a lot of options available in terms of the interface in Linux distribution. And if we talk about the customization, well, in Linux distributions, you can do a lot of customization as compared to Windows. If we talk about the performance, well, it is very evident and very prominent that Linux is way ahead in terms of performance from Windows operating system because it is very lightweight, it is open source, and it is very fast in terms of the performance. You will not feel any lag or you will not feel any difficulties while playing your games onto your Linux distributions. If we talk about the privacy and security, well, who doesn't know that Linux distributions are renowned for their privacy and security? They are open source and that makes them more secure and more private than Windows operating system. Now, I'll shift to my Windows and I will talk about all these things in terms of my Windows. So in terms of operating system price, well, Windows is not an open source and it is not free. Well, yes, there are some ways that people follow to download free version or you can say some pirated copies of Windows operating system, but still it is not free. If we talk about the game's availability, well, this is the one area where Windows has upper hand on Linux because we have a lot of games available as free and we can purchase them as well. We have Steam supported for Windows, and not only that, we have many other engines that we can use onto our Windows operating system for free and by default. And not only that, there are some other ways like people have their websites, people have their servers where they have deployed different games and you can download them for free. And not only that, by default, the games developer makes their games initially for Windows operating system because more than 90% of the computer users use Windows operating system on their system. And because of that, Windows developer make their choices for Windows as default. So this is where Windows has upper hand on Linux. If we talk about the interface, well, we get only one interface with Windows operating system. For example, as I'm using Windows 10, I'll get the default interface. Yes, I can do some of the changes like I can have different background, I can change a theme, and I can do some other stuff. But in terms of interface, and if we compare it with Linux, Linux has upper hand. And now if we talk about the customization, well, as we have talked about the interface, we get only one Windows 10. Like we have Windows 10 in here, we will get Windows 11 or we can use Windows 8. We cannot do a lot of changes or we cannot have any other flavor of Windows 10. But on the other hand, when we were talking about Linux, we have a lot of flavors available with different distributions. And because of that, we have a lot of customization options available in terms of Linux. In terms of performance, Windows is pretty good when it comes to gaming and people build their personalized computer and they build their rigs for gaming. But if we compare it on the base level, Windows is a slower in terms of the performance as compared to Linux. At the end, if we talk about the privacy and security, well, we all know that Windows is not private and not as secured as Linux distribution. And because of that, people shift towards Linux distribution because of the privacy and security. So these were some of the features about both of the operating system. And now if I were to conclude, I would say that in terms of game availability, Windows is way ahead than Linux distribution. But other than that, in every aspect, Linux is way ahead than Windows operating system. So it's all up to you that with which one you want to go. If you want to have more games, then you should go with Windows. But if you want to have customization and you want to have your privacy and security, and you also want to use an operating system that is free, then I would recommend you to go with Linux. And that brings us to the end of today's video. So please leave a like, subscribe and press the bell icon. I'll get back to you in the next video. Till then, take care.